Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Justin Thomas and Devin Hassan. Gentlemen, we are at that halfway point for boys basketball coverage. So, as we did last week with girls basketball being at its midpoint, we're going to kind of adopt the same mid-district progress report format that we have these past couple podcasts. This week, we're going to be touching on the action on the boys' side of the hard court. So today, we're going to be discussing all of our 6A districts, and then later in the week we're going to touch on 5A. So for this portion of the podcast, let's talk a little Lewisville ISD, some Garland ISD, Mesquite ISD, the first three of our four Class 6A districts. And let's just start out Denton ways, Justin, out in good old 6A. Yeah. At the halfway point, just to run down these standings, you have Coppell in first place. Shout out to the Cowboys, all alone in first at 7-0. They've got a 2-game lead, so a nice little cushion for Coppell to work with. They have a 2-game lead over Lewisville and Hebron, who are tied for second place at 5-2. You have Irving MacArthur in fourth place at 4-3. Let's see, city rival Irving Nimitz, 1 game behind them at 3-4. And then you have a tie for sixth place between the two Flower Mound programs, Flower Mound High and Marcus, both at 2-5. And then you have Irving in eighth place at 0-7. Was Coppell expected to be able to contend, or obviously be in position to now win a district championship with a nice 2-game lead over the field? Just talk a bit about the Cowboys to kick this one off.
Yeah, I don't really think it was expected, at least not from my perspective. And then we'll get into our podcast guest later, but visiting with them, I think he was even a little surprised, maybe, especially how the season started and everything. Mm-hmm. I thought Coppell was going to have a good team coming into the season, but they have KJ Liggins, who's a standout on the football team.
That's right, yeah. Keep forgetting all the guys they lost.
He's a sophomore this year. He made varsity last year. I can't remember if he was like an everyday starter, but definitely like a big minutes player for them. Well, he gets injured during football, first couple weeks of the football season, so he's out for the whole season. Then they have Quavian Adger, who was maybe their best player last year, an all-district player. He was just a sophomore. He ends up transferring out to the I school in Lewisville. So, two projected, not just two starters, but two players you would think would kind of be key contributors to this team weren't there at the start of the season. So that left senior 4-year starter Tariq Aman as pretty much the lone player with almost any real varsity experience. So didn't know what to expect. They have a first-year coach as well in Clint Schnell, because Kip Pale moved into an AD position with Coppell. So just unfamiliarity all around, but here they are, 7-0. Obviously a 2-game lead, and they have head-to-head wins over Hebron and Lewisville. They're doing it with their defense. They got a big win over Flower Mound on a putback to win 61-60. After that, they've had 3 straight wins. They've held each opponent under 50 points, so they're really playing good defense, and I think that's where it starts for them, outside of the leadership and playmaking ability that Tariq brings to the point guard spot. It's been a nice little bounce back year out in Lewisville as well. Yeah, I'm just kind of talking about the Farmers, who have worked their way into a nice contention for a high playoff seed. Yeah, they were a pretty inexperienced team. Another team last year that had a first-year coach, Jeff McGowan, and he only lasted 1 year before moving to a teaching position. So they have a new coach, Brian Miller, and they're playing much better. They have more experience. And then kind of like Coppell got hurt with 2 players that maybe they weren't expecting on. Lewisville's had 2 players come in that have really changed things. The Little Elm transfer, KJ Pruitt, and then freshman Keontae George, who's just having an awesome season. He looks like he's the real deal. You're going to be hearing about that name a lot over the next 4 years. But so they have, 4 good guards. Kylan Green was an all-district player as a freshman last year. He's back for his sophomore year. And then O.C. Gertman's having a good year too. So they have 4 guards that can all do different things, and they like to pick up the tempo and push the ball and score, and they're doing well. And so they're even with Hebron, who's won back-to-back district championships. But another team that kind of not sure what you were going to get from them with what they lost, and then they don't get Trajan Bridges for district because he ends up going to Oklahoma early for football. But they're plugging right along. They were right there in that Coppell game. It was a one-possession game with 3 or 4 minutes left before they came up short. So they're hanging right in there too. Those 3 teams are kind of the cream of the crop, I would think. Irving MacArthur is sitting there at 4-3. They've lost 3 in a row. They kind of haven't excelled against when they've played the Lewisvilles and the Coppells and Hebrons lately. So they're kind of come back to the pack after starting 4-0. Nimitz has been playing well, and then you look at the other 2 Lewisville schools, Marcus and Flower Mound. Was expecting better things from Flower Mound. They seem to be playing better lately. They've been competitive in losses, lost a close one to Lewisville, lost tip-in to Coppell. They were actually winless at that point when Coppell was undefeated, and they almost took them down. So they started off 0-4, now they're up to 2-5, so they're playing better, but they still have a big hill to climb if they want to get up into the playoffs. So looking like maybe MacArthur is the team they're going to have to catch if they want to get in.
And they've got one of the best players in the state though to fall back on, so that's a nice little ace in the hole for sure.
Yeah, definitely Caleb Lohner. He seems to be kind of percolating a little bit lately, playing after kind of his scoring seemed to be a little down at the start. But Flower Mound, another team that really didn't have a lot of experience, just Jeffrey Mills and Caleb Lohner, basically the only players back they had, so maybe it's just taking them a little time. But I wouldn't count them out. They're only 2 games back on MacArthur now, so I wouldn't count out the Jaguars quite yet.
Let's shift gears, Devin. Let's talk about some of the happenings in your neck of the woods over in Garland ISD with District 10-6A. This district produced a state semifinalist last year and could very well do so once again. Let's run down the standings. You got the aforementioned state semifinalist, South Garland, just chugging right along at 7-0. Lakeview Centennial, another perennial powerhouse out of Garland ISD, they are 6-1 in second place. You have a third place tie between Wiley and Sachse at 4-3. Rowlett is 1 game behind those 2. They are in 5th place at 3-4. You got North Garland in 6th place at 2-5. And a tie for 7th place between Garland and Naaman Forest at 1-6. Certainly the preseason belief that Sachse had shown was making some strides under their new head coach. Certainly a kind of like a program like Lewisville, Sachse very much kind of building off of the early success that they had. So just kind of talk a bit about the Mustangs as they are for the first time in quite some time, I think, smack dab in the playoff race.
Yeah, Zach Mikesell, their first-year head coach, who came over from Lakeview, so he's been a part of a winning program for a long time. Really did a good job at instilling that belief in Sachse. This is a Sachse team that won 1 district game last year. And they're 4-3. Last week they beat Wiley. Wiley's been state ranked for much of the year. Dylan McKeon hits a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win 63-62. Kind of one of those season-defining moments. That if Sachse makes the playoffs, they'll look back on that. Yeah. But they've come out and we all knew they had the athletes there. They had the quality of players there. It was just a matter of getting the right combination, I think, with the new coach. Just a breath of fresh air. And those players have bought into the system, and Tyler Blue is a seasoned guy. Obi Onya, Jordan Nichols. These are guys that have been in that program for multiple year starters. But they've kind of taken their game to the next level. And again, I mentioned Dylan McKeon hitting that game-winning three the other night. They're playing better defense, and they've been right with everybody, with the exception of South Garland, which is the class of the district. But outside of that, Sachse has been in every game. And obviously they've been able to kind of pull up through and win some of those close games that in years past they wouldn't be able to win.
Yeah, when they picked up wins non-district over both Plano and Plano West, they were okay. I'm buying into the Sachse resurgence a bit.
yeah, and without a doubt. And again, I think that early season during those tournaments was so big for them because again, I mentioned they won 1 district game last year. Well, they were 2-24 overall. Wow. So they just that group, and they had a lot of those guys back, just wasn't used to experiencing any success. So when they go out there and you mentioned those 2 wins, and they had similar ones like it, that just built confidence. Just showed them that what they're doing under Coach Mikesell is working, and that's translated into district play.
With Rowlett, just kind of what do you make of their first half of district play? Do you foresee them being able to catch either Wiley or Sachse? Or
They beat Sachse in a close 55-53 in their first meeting. Lost to Wiley. Rowlett is a team that graduated everybody last year. Chukwu Ogu's back, but he was really the only main contributor, along with Carson Loya. But everybody else is basically new to the rotation, and it's been a roller coaster for them. In non-district was a roller coaster. They've had their ups and downs. They're kicking themselves. You mentioned Naaman Forest at the bottom of the standings. Their one win is over Rowlett in overtime when Rowlett blew a 13-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and Naaman Forest, and it probably should be a three-way tie, and Rowlett at season's end, maybe kicking themselves over that. But again, one of the benefits, I guess, of having so many new guys is the opportunity for growth is still there, and so they're a team that's been getting better as the season goes on.
Do you foresee any of these teams being able to catch those top two? I mean, South Garland is South Garland, so that is what it is. But if I'm just thinking toward ahead to the playoffs and the odds of running into Jesuit or Allen in the first round, there's been a. We'll get to District 9 6A later on, but there's definitely a line of demarcation between those top two and the rest of the district. Do you foresee anybody being able to catch those top two though in 10 6A?
No, I mean South Garland. South Garland and Lakeview played on Friday in a battle of two 6-0 teams coming in, and South Garland handled them. I mean, Tyrese Maxey. Too bad Murphy's on the podcast. I say he's the best player in the state, but one of the best players in the state. Chris Harris Jr. is no slouch himself. They're just a step above everybody else. Lakeview is a very good team. Dante Houston Jr. They've got some very good players. I just don't see. I think there's a clear separation. I don't see either one of those coming back to the pack. I think it comes down to a three-team battle with Wiley and Sachse and Rowlett, and whoever wins those head-to-head battles is going to be your third and fourth playoff spots. Can't really count out. Again, I mentioned Naaman Forest tripping up Rowlett before, and North Garland has been solid competition. Rowlett had a rally in the fourth quarter to beat them on Friday, and Garland gave Wiley all they wanted on Friday. So, those bottom three, I don't think they're going to factor into the playoff equation.
Could play spoiler,
but they're going to play spoiler, and that's what it's going to come down to.
Over in 11 6A, out Mesquite ways, we mentioned that you have South Garland led by one of the best players in the state, into their undefeated start to district play. You've got a team undefeated atop District 11 6A that also has one of the best players in the state. The Samuel Williamson show at Rockwall is clicking along just fine. Rockwall is 6-0. They're in first place, undefeated in District 11 6A. Second place, Mesquite. The Skeeters are at 4-2. You got a tie for third place between Longview and Rockwall Heath at 3-3. Then you have a tie for fifth place between the other two Mesquite ISD programs, Horn and North Mesquite. They are at 2-4, and you have Tyler Lee in seventh place at 1-5. I don't know. As anything, I'm sure Rockwall being in first place isn't much of a surprise, but just kind of size up the. I guess starting with Mesquite is the Skeeters being in contention for a high playoff spot. Was that anticipated coming into the season, or?
I think so. That they return one of the better shooters in the area in Cody LeBlanc. Grant Stewart gives him a presence on the inside. DeAndre Heath is a nice guard. This district makes me scratch my head sometimes. So, and even on Friday, Mesquite goes out there and loses by double digits to Rockwall Heath, which I didn't expect. I thought this was a two-horse race. I thought Rockwall and Mesquite were going to battle it out. Rockwall won the first meeting, but I thought those two would be neck and neck, and now all of a sudden Mesquite is in danger of coming all the way back to the pack, which is what they did last year. Really? They got off to a good start, kind of slumped, and ended up missing the playoffs for the first time in 15 years. So they have the personnel. Again, this district has just been odd. I mean, it just, as far as the head-to-head results, outside of Rockwall taking care of business, it's one, the cliche, anybody can beat anybody on any given night, but that's really been the case in this district. There's been, every time I look at the results and it's, okay, well, I didn't expect that, or I didn't expect that, and what you have is a pack of those, 5 teams within 2 games of one another.
Yeah, so it does feel like beyond the 1 seed, there's still very much to be determined there. So for the, obviously right now, Horn and North Mesquite are outside of the playoff picture, but just 1 game back of Longview and Heath. I guess, is it, just kind of whether it's Horn or North, do you foresee one of those being able to potentially crack that top 4, or just who kind of stands the best chance of being able to wedge their way into the playoffs?
Well, Horn's intriguing because even in non-district, their results were just mind-blowing sometimes because you never could kind of pinpoint what they're going to do. They have an excellent scorer in Zakir Sawyer, and they have a lot of different guys that have stepped up. But North Mesquite is actually the team that intrigues me the most out of that group because they're a team that last year, they hadn't made the playoffs since 2008, and it looked like they were going to finish on the outside looking in again, and they won their last 4 games in district, including beating Rockwall Heath, who was at that time in first place. And then to force a play-in game against Mesquite, and they beat Mesquite. So they basically had a 5-game winning streak in the regular season. So they have that experience. And Jared Caraway, who was arguably their best player last year, transferred. So he was out for the first part of the year, but he transferred back to the school. And now he's playing.
How does that happen?
It just happens. Yeah, we don't talk about But adding a player of his caliber to what was already a solid team with guys like Darren Wright and Trey Moore, and again, adding him back into the equation, picked up a nice win over Tyler Lee on Friday, and I just think as they come together and also being able to fall back on that experience from last year when they were able to turn it on, late January to make that push for the playoffs, I think North Mesquite has an excellent chance to return.
Okay, that is a look at a few of our Class 6A districts. Obviously, still got 9 6A to discuss, and we will do that in just a few minutes. But first, gotta shine that student-athlete spotlight, and for that, Justin went out to Coppell to talk with their standout point guard, Tariq Aman, on the Cowboys and their undefeated run through District 6A so far. And yeah, we'll see what Tariq had to say after a word from the sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
All right, we're here with Tariq Aman, senior guard for the Coppell Cowboys. Tariq, thanks for taking a few minutes to join us here on the Star Local Media Sports Podcast.
No problem.
So you guys hit the district midpoint on Friday, and you guys are the first place team in District 6A. Just kind of break down how you feel the season's gone for you guys so far.
To start off the season, I wasn't so sure about this team, to be honest, because we're really young. Oh, not like young, but a lot of players from JV last year. So I knew it's like a new beginning almost, and I have to reteach a lot of things, but we've improved way more than I thought we would going through the season, a lot faster than I thought we would.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're exactly where I want us to be, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, tough to complain about undefeated in district at the halfway point, right?
Definitely.
Friday, you guys obviously had a big game. Hebron came in 1 game behind you with a chance to draw even, and you guys obviously pulled out the win to close the first half. Just talk about that game and how things played out on Friday night for you guys.
Well, going into every game, we're playing it like a must-win. I mean, teams come to play against us because they know they need a win, and just because we're undefeated doesn't mean anything. So same thing going into that game. We knew they had a big score in Logan, but we game planned for him. And, we just execute our stuff and it turns out successful for us. So.
You mentioned big score for them with Logan. You got another one coming up with Keontae George at Lewisville. Obviously, some other players in this district that can really score the ball. What is your guys' kind of defensive mentality going through this district slate?
It varies from player to player. Personally, I just try to get into their best score and make him uncomfortable. And at the same time, they're good scorers, so they're gonna do what they do. But offensively, I'm gonna individually try to do what I do, and at the same time, as a team, just execute our stuff and we'll be fine.
Coach Snell says this is a team that really prides itself on its defense, is the way you guys play on the defensive end and how you're able to handle some of those scoring options. Do you feel like that's what's led to your guys' success so far?
Definitely, because we haven't necessarily had a great shooting game in probably 2.5, 3 weeks. So it's really won us those games is our defense. And at the same time, we make big plays when it's necessary, and we have offensive players on our team that can make plays, on their own. But the bottom line is if we don't get stops, we don't win a lot of those games. So that's been our biggest thing.
Heard Coach talking after practice. Got another one, and we mentioned already that Lewisville game coming up. You guys saw them in non-district, and you've already seen them once in district. How are things different when you're seeing a team for the second or third time?
They pretty much know our tendencies. We know their tendencies. So it's really who can execute their game plan the best, and who can make more plays and get more stops. To be honest.
You mentioned kind of at the start of this interview, not really sure what the expectations of the team would be, and I know kind of after the season ended last season, you were probably thinking there were some guys that were going to be on the roster that aren't here for various reasons.
Yeah.
How have you guys been able to overcome those losses that you might have thought you were going to have on the roster this season and start off like you have?
It's really just a next man up mentality. I knew I was going to be here, and I know I can make plays, and I know I have teammates that do certain things really well that they're doing, and that's a reason why we're 7-0. So I mean, just guys on the team doing their job and knowing what they can do, and I mean it led us to 7-0 in district.
Kind of in that same vein, you talked about kind of a lot of players from JV and stuff like that, but obviously you're here, you're a 4-year varsity player and starter. Yeah. What have you tried to kind of instill in some of these younger guys as kind of the quote-unquote leader of the team?
Going from JV to varsity, there's a big difference in the intensity, especially in practice. And I think that was the biggest thing. To start off the year, practices would be kind of definitely not as intense as they are now. It'd be kind of soft. So I mean, I try my best to get in players and teach them or show them that I mean, you have to go hard 100% of the time, and it's just a next play type of thing. I mean, we still have issues with like whining and stuff every now and then, but it's definitely not where it was before. So I think that was our biggest thing.
So you guys are entering the second half on Tuesday. What's it going to take for this senior year to be a successful one for you? How do you guys want to go out here?
One game at a time. Every game's a must-win. Play with a chip on our shoulder. I know going into this year that teams definitely didn't expect us to win many games, and we definitely weren't the favorite in this district. So I mean, that no matter what our record is, I mean that's our chip on our shoulder going through every game we play for the rest of the year. So that's our biggest thing.
All right. Well, Tariq, thanks for taking a few minutes to join us. If y'all haven't got a chance to check out the Cowboys, like I said, you can see them Tuesday with the big game against Lewisville. So Tariq, thanks again for joining us on the podcast today.
No problem. My pleasure.
Thanks again to Tariq Aman for taking the time to chat with Justin for our Student Athlete Spotlight. And yeah, let's round out our Class 6A boys basketball mid-district progress reports with let's talk some 9-6A. Let's see, the standings in District 9-6A at the midpoint. Got a tie for first place. The district championship's still up for grabs. You have Jesuit and Allen at 6-1. Technically, Jesuit has the head-to-head tiebreaker right now by virtue of the head-to-head win over Allen. We have a three-way tie for third place. So finally, a district where there's some actual, some log jams.
Some controversy.
You have Plano West, Prosper, and McKinney all tied for third place at 4-3. You got Plano East making a push as of late. The Panthers are in sixth place at 2-5, and then a tie for seventh place between Plano Senior and McKinney Boyd at 1-6. I don't know. We don't have to start at the top. Plano East, man.
Sure.
Plano East had a very, very impressive week last week.
Absolutely.
The Panthers were 0-5. They are able to not only get off the schneid against McKinney Boyd, but wouldn't you know, but then they go and muddying up Prosper, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they took down Prosper, and they've, it looks like slowly but surely under first-year head coach Matt Wester, things are starting to round into form for the Panthers.
Yeah, I saw that game against Boyd, and that was never even really close. I mean, it's interesting because, for Boyd, Jeremy Josie said that, they start really slow pretty much every game in district, and that's kind of been their downfall on their way to 1-6. And that was certainly true against Plano East. I mean, Plano East got out to a big halftime lead, had a huge run that kind of effectively buried Boyd. Boyd did outscore them through, 2 quarters and change the second half a little bit, but, East got out to a pretty good lead, played really good, aggressive defense, which is something that it seems like both Plano East teams are kind of hanging their hat on this year as far as boys and girls. But they looked good, man. And then they go out and back it up with a win over Prosper, and they almost beat Jesuit, 6-1 Jesuit. The Friday before they actually got that first win, that game was 57-53? So, and the thing that, Wester told me after that win against Boyd is that this team, it's a team that doesn't feel like they needed this to validate how good they are. They've felt kind of all year that they're capable of getting some wins in this district, that they are capable of getting a postseason spot. It may be too little too late for that unless they just go absolutely insane and rattle off 5 of 7 or something in the back half. But it's on the up and up over there at East. You could say that. It's coming together. These are a bunch of young kids that I think were really accustomed to winning at the JV level and accustomed to playing together, and they're finally kind of really getting some traction at the varsity level, at least in district. They had a pretty good non-district schedule. They won some pretty impressive games. They had the win over Morton Ranch early. That was the big highlight, the last second buzzer beater. But yeah, I mean it's not out of the realm of possibility with 3 teams at 4-3 and them at 2-5. They take out two of those teams, a couple other wins somewhere else, they could get back in the conversation. It's a long shot. I mean, they're a long way out. They that 0-5 hole really dug them pretty deep as far as trying to get back in the top half of things. But it's definitely on the come up and on the turnaround, and I would think that returning pretty much everybody, this is going to be a pretty good program in years to come as well.
And those 2 wins have then vaulted them over city rival Plano Senior. Plano Senior at 1-6. Their only win had come over Plano East.
Yeah.
With Plano Senior, their first half has been a case of close but no cigar, almost, horseshoes, hand grenades, whatever cliche you want to throw out, because having, I got to see them against Allen, last Tuesday, and I mean, here's the thing about Plano. So they're 1-6. Their 6 losses have come by an average of 6.5 points.
I saw them lose by 8 to McKinney.
Yeah.
And they looked the part when you see them.
They do look
They
the
just
part.
play all close games because they only beat East by, I think, 7.
They even got the 6'10" dude. It's like, okay, he's going to be dunking on people. Oh, no, he's not.
They're Plano is it is a very deceptive 1-6 because Plano has been in every game essentially.
The coaches give them a shot. They have a really good coach. I don't forget
Dean Christian.
Yeah, he gives them a chance. Like it's one of those teams. Like they're gonna knock somebody off and cost somebody a playoff spot.
Yeah, Plano does the
They're not gonna beat themselves.
Very much the same style of play, the same kind of mentality under Coach Christian that they've had for years. You know what you're going to get against Plano. They have maybe the deepest team in the district. I mean, that was the game against Allen. They were they were in a 12-0 hole to start. Coach Christian does basically a line change essentially, starts emptying the bench, and they were able to cut that deficit.
Shuttle them in and out.
They were able to cut that deficit to 6 by half. They were down, I want to say, 32-26 at halftime, and the starters had only scored 2 points in the first half. So their bench did all that to bring them back against a top 5 team in the state, and that just shows you just the depth that they have, the confidence that Coach Christian has in turning to those guys like Cooper Slay. Aaron Boyd was a player that against Allen that really stood out. Just guys that they can throw off the bench and just not miss a beat, because their starters they really do. They've got so much length. They've got a lot of size, a lot of length. Guys like Quentin Williamson, who is one of the better rim protectors in that district. You mentioned the 6'10" guy, Stanley Joseph. Dylan Walker, who's become has kind of emerged as the kind of the go-to scorer.
Is that the athletic guy?
He's 32. He's number 32, but yeah, he's a solid athlete for sure. And then you have their point guard, Zachary Creighton, who was one of their best reserves last year, who's thrived in the role as their starting point guard. I mean, they've been in every game, and it's just when this I don't know whether it's because I've only seen the Allen game, so I can't vouch for what.
I know the fourth quarter they couldn't make shots.
Yeah, what held them back in the fourth quarter, because they've been right there. When they enter in crunch time, and it could be maybe they're because last year they had a guy that you could go out and you were guaranteed at least 20 points a night from Hunter Meyer. Hunter Meyer was as good a shooter, good a scorer as there was in the district. So they've kind of Walker's starting to kind of take on that role as kind of the go-to scorer, but it seems like they'll still kind of fall into that habit where it's a lot of guys that can get you 8 to 12 points instead of that one guy who you can kind of put the ball in his hands and go get you a bucket there when it matters. And that's kind of held him back, because in this district, that's just, you look at the star power that the Jesuits, the Allens, Plano West with the
I was going to say even Plano West. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you have to have that guy that can go get you a shot in crunch time, and it's just been so we'll just see. I mean, Plano is, I don't want to cross them off by any stretch despite that record, because again, they could very well get on a hot streak like last year and go.
They're gonna repeat that. That was magic last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's they've been. Again, that's the thing. Like if they,
I'm not gonna vote against them. I think they're gonna have an effect on the standings on the actual outcome.
Oh yeah,
somebody in the top 5 is about to get their head cut.
Yeah, you're not going to get an easy game against Plano, not whatsoever. Their style of play does not breed that kind of an outcome. So yeah, just with Plano, I was just surprised to see that it's a very deceptive 1-6, because I mean, as I said, they lost to Allen by 6 at Allen, and they did this was despite being down 12-0 in Allen's gym at the start. I mean, that's a solid team over at Plano, despite the district record. We could talk about the logjam right now in third place with McKinney, Plano West, Prosper a little bit. I mean, with McKinney, they started off really hot and have kind of fallen back a little bit into the pack.
Last 3 out of 4, they lost to Jesuit, they lost to Prosper, they lost to Allen. Coach Watson feels they gave away the Prosper game. And Allen, they played a good game. Byron Scobie was the coldest I've seen him. He still had 17 points. He was
17 on an off night, still pretty good.
He just wasn't. They just couldn't get no shots to fall, and Allen's depth gave them problems. But the key for them, I think, will be these next 3 games will be a telltale. They play Plano, Plano West and Plano East back to back, and only one of them on the road. And the key thing, I don't know if we want to call it a quirk in the schedule, is 5 of the second half games are on the road. So that in this district, that's a big thing. So they're going to have to go somewhere and win. Fortunately for them, 2 of the games that Prosper and the Plano East that they must beat are at their gym where they're very comfortable. But they're going to have to go. This week's going to be a telltale week. They got to go to Plano. And they got to go to Plano West.
Yep.
So we'll see what the lines are made out of. But as Matt knows, this district, they always find a way to get in. And that team, we've seen them in way worse positions than this, and they got in. So they're in a good position compared to where they were last year this time. Yeah. And they still got in. So definitely don't count the Lions out. And Coach Watson and his staff. And their team's starting to develop to be more than Byron Scobie. They got 2 up-and-coming freshmen. Alex, Onawake, I want to butcher my name, Onawake.
And the Mesquite.
Yeah, he's one of the top freshmen. And then they also got Devin Vincent. Both of those guys have star potential written on them. Even though they're young, but they're athletic, and they give them players that can take the scoring when Scobie's off. You can always count on Aaron Brown and Andrew Pitts to do their thing. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Lions do down the stretch. I think their experience in Scobie, kind of figuring out how people are going to play him, because he's kind of like the Patriots. He see you twice. It's hard to get that man twice. Allen's like, hey, we held him under 20. They felt like that was a win, and that was part of it.
Taylor, with Plano West, the Wolves have gotten back on track. It would seem. They started off 1-2. Started off in district.
Yeah, something
had a couple tough losses to McKinney and to Prosper, but they've rounded into form since, including obviously a massive win over Jesuit, which really showcases what this kind of the vision that at the start of the year, with all that experience that they had back, what they could be capable of this season. Yeah,
and I think the thing with Jesuit and coming into that building at Plano West, and you said you mentioned that McKinney has to go to Plano West. That's a gym that can be really hard to play in. When they get going, that's one of the better environments, one of the better home environments for any team in the district. And when those fans get hype, and Plano West is a team that likes to kind of build off that momentum. They have a couple guys that like to dunk if they get on a fast break. They have a couple guys that like to get that kind of good energy and feeling going, and the fans certainly reciprocate it, and it can lead to obviously, like you saw, a 4-point win over Jesuit. They go to Plano and win. I don't think they'll have much trouble with McKinney Boyd. I mean, who knows? That McKinney Boyd team's a team with talent. It's one of those districts where every team has talent. But then they get McKinney at home, they got Plano East at home, and Plano at home to round out the district with a couple games on the road against some of the top teams, including Prosper. But it's they kind of saved their district season, I think, with those wins and getting back to 4-3 and getting back to feeling pretty good about themselves, especially that win over Jesuit heading into the second half. And the way it sets up now, I expect them to be a postseason team, because, like I said, they get McKinney at home. That's huge because they're right lumped in there. They get Plano East at home, which is a game that you should win. And then they get Plano at home, which is another game that you should win. I mean, anything can happen in those rivalry games, but I think the main difference is, I follow on Twitter. If I'm not watching the game, they post their stats and the scores every night. And instead of it being, Ryan Zambi had 25 and that's kind of the end of it, now it's, Dalen Miner's got 17. Yeah. Or, Alex Zambi's got a double-double or whatever the case may be. They have a little bit of a three-headed monster as opposed to just Ryan Zambi kind of propelling them into the postseason or into the postseason conversation, I should say, since they missed out last year. But seem a little bit more well-rounded, and like you said, they kind of saved their season, man. That win over Jesuit was huge.
They will, at the very least, they have to get a win over either Prosper or McKinney, looking at the standings, because they do not have the head-to-head over either right now, and those are the two teams that you're tied with in the standings. So
I think Scobie had 45 on them the first.
Did he? Yeah. Scobie will put up 40+ on a lot of teams.
Yeah. So that's definitely the one I think you circle if you're a Plano West fan. It's Friday. Yeah. That's the one that could make or break, because you lose that one at home. Sometimes that kind of deflates a team.
Will you be in the neck of the woods?
Oh, Friday? No, I'll be out at Allen and Jesuit.
Okay.
Allen and Jesuit are playing Friday. I mean, that's Plano West and McKinney's a good one too, but I mean, that is the de facto district championship, it seems. So I'll be out at that one.
I know the Allen guys, they're like, we're playing good ball, so when we see Jesuit again, we're ready. They're on their minds. Like for them, if you're a Jesuit fan, you got the state champs' attention. for sure.
Let's see. With just a quick note on Prosper, because I was just checking through some box scores and
Continuing to do Prosper things.
Yeah,
Surprise us all.
Prosper kind of flew under the radar, I would say, at the start of district play.
Yeah.
I think even per Brian, from what he had heard, I mean, Prosper wasn't. I don't know if they were expected to be a playoff team and work their way into the mix, but nevertheless, here they are. And if you're just looking kind of over their last 4 games, I do know that coming into the season, a lot was on the plate of Josh Davis. There's who's a senior. I believe this is his 3rd year on varsity. But nevertheless, if you look at just kind of in recent weeks, his scoring has really picked up. He's averaging almost 19 points per game over his last 4. The big thing, in the holidays was the emergence of Mondo Battle, who just kind of came out of nowhere with Prosper and really helped kind of lift them to those big wins over the Plano West of the world and just the teams that they now McKinney, which gives them obviously the nice head-to-head over those 2 programs and puts them, I guess, technically, if you're just talking about just
Oh yeah,
They're third slot.
they're in
third
the prime spot.
So they are in a good spot for sure. But
So technically, then they're third. McKinney's 4th.
Yes,
Officially, yeah, they have the same record.
So
but
Friday games.
if it ended today, then Plano West would be on the outside.
So Prosper, just once again, and maybe we just need to just put to rest the idea that Prosper's going to be, the whole 5A to 6A
Exactly.
thing.
This is a basketball podcast.
Did we dock him for that because it's their first year in the classification? No, Prosper's.
But if you look at the numbers, they're bigger than both McKinney's.
Yeah.
They're bigger than Jesuit.
They're bigger than everybody but the Plano schools and Allen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 biggest schools in the
And they are having zero trouble in any sport.
Yeah.
So numbers-wise, they are doing what they're supposed to do.
We might need to put that narrative to rest.
Yeah.
Shame on us for continuing to fall victim to that. So yeah, like you said, Taylor, just Prosper doing Prosper things. As of now, though, it does look like there's a bit of a line of demarcation between the those bottom 6 and then the top 2, as Allen and Jesuit establish themselves as the class of the district. They are 6-1 apiece. So Jesuit is technically the first place team by virtue of that head-to-head win over Allen. The only time I've seen Jesuit this season, and yeah, I mean, I didn't come away from that game thinking it was a fluke or anything like that. Like the book on Jesuit is, I mean, if they're hitting their threes, that is as tough an out as there is in the state, because they have 4 or 5 guys that are all, they have the green light constantly.
Coach Wentz Watson for McKinney told me they went 18 for 22, and they didn't miss but 1 in the first half.
Yeah. You're just not going to lose a basketball game if you're just going to be that hot from the outside.
How they put up 80 points against McKinney.
Yes, they have. And the game I saw them against Allen was without, who's, perhaps their best overall players, big man Julius Marble. He was injured 2 minutes into that game, and they still were able to just fire away at will. And, I mean, yeah, if Jesuit's knocking down their outside shots, that team has a chance to do something pretty special. I will say, though, I mean, since that Allen win, which is impressive as it was, the results since have been a little bit uneven, for a team that's ranked in the top 5 of the state. They just mentioned Plano a ways back. They trailed Plano at the half in that game. They only led McKinney and Plano East by 2 points after 3 quarters, and then they lost to Plano West. So since then, they were able to get back on track.
But Marvel's been hurt, though, right?
No, he's back. He's back. Yeah, he's back. And, I mean, they're definitely meeting a bit more resistance as of late. But nevertheless, outside of that West game, they've been able to take care of business ultimately. But yeah, like I said, I mean, the book on Jesuit, man, and they're a fun team to watch too. It's a really high IQ team. They move the ball very, very well. They play the job that they did defensively against Allen is still just, I mean, they basically, it was Isaiah Stevens or nothing. I mean, they just could not get anything else going beyond Isaiah Stevens in that game. And yeah, Jesuit they have the head-to-head win. They have it at Allen. And I mean, all eyes are on Friday night out of Jesuit. I'm sure the student section will be rocking. And Taylor, you get yourself a good one on Friday.
Yep.
So, and yeah, let's some quick thoughts on Allen in their first half. Like I said, outside of that Jesuit game, Allen is taking care of business. They've said Plano was able to give them a competitive game. That's the only time beyond the Jesuit game that Allen's had a district game finish within single digits.
Yeah.
Outside of that, their 6 district wins have come by an average of 19.3 points. You have Isaiah Stevens, who is on that short list of contenders for district MVP. I mean, we mentioned just the torrid scoring streak that he went on, late December, early January. He had 42 against Jesuit.
Who would you say top 3? I would say him, Scobie.
Max Amos for Jesuit. I'd say probably their point guard. That's. I don't know, if I was going to submit my district MVP ballot, those 3 in some order would probably be your 3 front runners.
Got to see him play Friday. Got in foul trouble, but you can tell, as the old school cats like to say, he's the straw that stirs the drink. For sure, he definitely feeds in. He's got the the proper Allen swag, and they feed off that. And then you got Mo, the guy was the number one.
Manny Obaseki.
That's a special talent. I don't get impressed too much by youngsters. That kid is.
Yeah.
That kid's. He went YMBL in the middle of the game. That was one of the coolest things. He tried to bounce it from the 3-point line, Tyler, over Andrew Pitts to I forget number 2, Thailand.
Thailand
to catch a oop in the game.
That's if you ever
And they almost pulled it off.
if you're going to go to an Allen game, get there early to see this team during
They had 3 dunks in the game.
during layup lines, because I don't know how many teams I've seen that can just dunk the ball like Allen. Like I did a profile on Isaiah Stevens a couple weeks ago just on his great year and whatnot. But as we're doing our interview on the we're sitting at the scores table conducting the interview, in the background you got the rest of the team basically having like a dunk contest. They've got 6-7 guys that are all just doing stuff that you just don't see high school athletes.
They had 3 of them, and they had 3 dunks in the game. 21 had 2. One of them, and then Elder had 1.
Oh, yeah.
They threw off the backboard in the game, and he's like doing a chin up and looking and coming down, and all the people in McKinney are just like.
Manny Obaseki had a breakaway dunk against Plano that I had to go on Twitter, and I had to was recording the dunk, and then I went through and I had to go frame by frame to see how close his head came to hitting the rim. He is that kind of an athlete. And
Spoiler, it was close.
He is just a sophomore.
It was close.
Sophomore.
He's not even halfway done with his high school career.
Like I say, bad nose, I'll be like, oh, he's just a high school kid. This guy can play. Manny get that right hand that we talked about. The man gonna be special. He has a very good flow. The one thing I was mainly impressed with Allen is they play good as a unit, and everybody knows their role.
Yeah.
Like everybody, hey, Stevens is our go-to. We know we can get Manny, and then those other guys spot up in the 3. I call them the 3-and-D guys, and they do their job very well. They're gonna be a tough out because like some of these teams, they lean on, we're defending state champions, but most of them didn't play.
Oh yeah, no.
But this team knows their role.
They have 2 kids back from that championship rotation. Isaiah Stevens and Corey
Jones. They're not
Jones.
oblivious. Like they know that was like the program, not them.
Yeah.
So I like that hunger. I was very impressed with the Allen team. Coach McCullough does a good job. They be shutting the suckers in and out.
Yep.
Like every time they would.
Yeah, and they've got a young but a talented bench. You see guys like Mason Gibson, who's become one of their better, two-way players. You got the Green Twins, Blaine and Bryson from the football team that have, they get some size and physicality down low. They've got a very capable bench.
There won't be no easy outcome come March. It will not be an easy.
I do think that game against McKinney though was a big one for them because it sounds like you said Isaiah Stevens got into foul trouble a bit.
He didn't play the last 11 or 12 minutes.
Yeah,
he got like about 3 minutes in the third, and he sat out the whole fourth. They didn't need him.
Because in looking ahead to this Jesuit game, because obviously a lot is riding on the outcome of this game on Friday. And like I said, Isaiah Stevens had 42 points, and he couldn't be stopped against Jesuit. Jesuit's eventually the math equation in Jesuit having 3-4 guys that were able to just knock it down at will. Eventually the math was too much. But that's the big thing is what are you going to get out of the rest of the team? Because the way Jesuit's defense, though that pack line style, kind of a Virginia style of defense, they walled off because a lot of those guys like Obaseki, Tylen Elder, those are guys that really thrive on being able to put the ball on the floor,
get an open court,
get to the rack, and Jesuit wasn't having any of it. So that's going to kind of be the big adjustment is how do they go about getting the rest of those guys going? Because if they can, Stevens, you can't bank on 40 plus from a guy against a top 5 team in the state. That's just not a realistic expectation.
But Allen's staff does a good job, as we saw last year with Dayton Geyer. When they see you second more than once, they're going to make adjustments because all 3 of those games were completely different.
Oh, yeah.
And they got them when it counted because they saw them and got blown out. No, we can't run with this team. They slowed the game down a little bit. We're going to have to play Princeton ball. And they went Princeton ball and frustrated the Dayton Geyer and got in there. So hats off to their coaching staff. Like I said, I don't get thoroughly impressed by too many. But I'm like, they're all right. But yeah, they're going to be a tough out.
It's worth noting because this could very well be the second of third of 3 possible meetings between Allen and Jesuit this season. As they're both ranked top 5 in the state, and it stands to reason they could very well be seeing each other at some point in the playoffs.
When I see you next week, when I about to shoot, everybody can talk about this Jesuit shooting. Like Coach Watson said, I swear I was playing the Golden State Warriors.
They can light it up. that's no joke. Yeah, they've got. It seems like everybody on the floor has got that green light.
Like you can't do that on NBA Live. Like I think the most I've done is like 16 for 30 something.
Why aren't you playing NBA 2K? So let's see. So that is a look at District 9-6A. All the fun happenings out there. Obviously, still plenty to be decided, and it should be a fun home stretch in this district. I'm very much looking forward to it, and that will that'll conclude this episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. We'll be back later on in the week to do the same exercise exercise, only talking 5A action. In the meantime, folks, you enjoy the rest of your week. We will talk to y'all later.